We've got a surprising amount of star power in the live-action shorts this year. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. Today, we're going to be continuing to focus on long-form Oscar-related content. Best Picture gets all the attention and glory, but we're going to be talking about some of the lesser-known and underappreciated categories, the short films. This year, I got to do my annual Oscar Insanity trip again, and drove several hours to my nearest indie theater to watch shorts for nearly 8 hours straight. I know that not everybody's willing or able to subject themselves to such insanity in order to get out to see these, so I'm hoping that this 3-part Rankography series is able to help you out and get you prepared for the Oscar ceremony. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content, like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. I've already talked about the animated and documentary shorts, so that brings us to our final shorts category, the live-action shorts. This category is usually the second most popular of the shorts, and is often shown as a double feature along with the animated shorts, so hopefully some of you have had an opportunity to watch these. The 5 nominees are The After, Invincible, Night of Fortune, Red, White, and Blue, and The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. Since this is a rankography, I'm going to be ranking these shorts, but remember, this is just my ranking, not the ranking, so be sure to post your own personal ranking of the 2024 live-action short film Oscar nominees in the comments below. Coming in at number 5, The After. This is a UK submission directed by Misan Harriman and is available on Netflix. This short tells the story of a man who experiences a tragic loss and is confronted by grief when a stranger reminds him of someone important to him. Well, just like last year, they kicked the live-action short program off with an underwhelming nominee. This one is just so strange. Filled with weird camera work and rack focuses, this has a distinct music video feel to it, which makes no sense in the context of the story, so it wasn't some clever stylistic choice. As I mentioned, this story focuses on a man who experiences a tragedy, but the way this tragedy unfolds and is presented to us is absurd. It escalates so quickly, and it's so random and bizarre that a number of people in my theater actually laughed when it happened. And I also heard an involuntary exclamation of WTF from somebody. To be clear, neither of those were supposed to be the intended reaction here, which doesn't help this film get off to a particularly good start. What follows is an exceptionally emotionally manipulative story that pushes the audience around with its intrusive score. David Oyelowo gives it his all and definitely pours a lot of emotion into his performance, but it's not enough to save this short. Out of the 15 short films nominated across the 3 categories, this is easily the worst. Coming in at number 4, Invincible. This is a Canadian submission and was directed by Vincent René Lortie. Inspired by a true story, this film tells the story of 2 days in the life of a troubled teenager, housed in a youth detention center. Structurally, this is the second most interesting nominee in this category this year, presenting us with the final minutes of the film first, before jumping back in time to allow the whole story to play out linearly. It's a gimmick that doesn't always work, but I do think it's effective here, because the additional context really alters the emotional impact of the story. The tale is undoubtedly tragic and bleak, but there's this underlying feeling of almost hope, specifically as it relates to freedom and a desire for agency. It's certainly not an uplifting story, but is propelled by a very strong lead performance and its lingering sadness. Coming in at number 3, Red, White, and Blue. This is a US submission and was directed by Nazran Chowdhury. It tells the story of a woman in Arkansas who's forced to travel out of state in search of an urgent abortion. I would say that this was probably the biggest surprise of this category, and possibly the biggest surprise of all of the shorts nominees for me. It's one of those films that makes you think you know where it's going, and then it completely pulls the rug out from under you. Really, it's not often that you see a drama with a context-changing twist that's as significant as you see within this film. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil this twist for you, but there were audible gasps in my theater. It's a story that makes for good drama, I guess, but I think what makes this movie so impactful and hard-hitting is the fact that it doesn't really feel like fiction. With the current changes to laws in many states, the scenario that plays out in this film is all too common. And honestly, I'm sure a documentary version of this could have been made just as easily as this fictionalized version. Some of the dialogue and a few of the youth performances are a little iffy, which pulls this down a tiny bit, but this was a powerful and gut-wrenching film that left the theater shook. Coming in at number 2, The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. This is a joint UK-US submission and was directed by Wes Anderson and is available on Netflix. Based on Roald Dahl's short story of the same name, it tells the tale of wealthy gambler Henry Sugar, who endeavors to learn how to see without using his eyes. One of the 4 Wes Anderson directed Roald Dahl stories released on Netflix last year, this is the only nominated short of the 15 total that I had already seen prior to my theatrical shorts marathon. It was the best of the 4, and is loaded with stars including Benedict Cumberbatch, Ben Kingsley, and Ralph Fiennes, so I could see why it got the nomination, but it's certainly an oddity. I guess that should come as no surprise for a Wes Anderson film, but this is odd even for him. You've got all of his usual stylistic quirks like the pastel color palette, symmetrical framing, and detailed production design, but this gets even quirkier. Essentially, this film delivers Dahl's story verbatim. It begins with Roald Dahl, played by Ralph Fiennes, telling the story and then evolves into a unique stage play of sorts, with characters continually breaking the fourth wall and narrating the story in between their lines of dialogue. It's got a story within a story within a story structure, and runs a bit long, but it's fun if you can get on board with the style. It also doesn't hurt that it was the only wholly positive and uplifting nominee within the live-action category this year either. So that means my number 1 Oscar live-action short of 2024 is Night of Fortune. This is a Danish submission and was directed by Lasse Liskjær. It tells the story of a man working up the courage to view his dead wife at the morgue, who encounters another grieving husband. I realize that this probably sounds like a really depressing and downbeat film, and it's definitely sad and emotional, but it's also incredibly funny. It's got this dark humor that probably won't work for everyone, so I wouldn't be surprised if nobody agrees with my placement of this film, but it definitely worked for me, and kind of reminded me a bit of another Danish live-action short nominee from a few years ago called On My Mind. This film focuses on a man whose wife has just died, and he's having trouble figuring out how to deal with it. Rather than confronting his grief, he procrastinates and distracts himself. For example, instead of viewing her in her coffin, he decides to try to fix a flickering light in the room. Again, anything to avoid actually coming to terms with her death. So, when a chance encounter in the bathroom puts him in the company of another grieving and struggling husband, he gets pulled into an awkward and entertaining series of events. It's all pretty dark, but the situational humor here, and some of the reactionary shots when these two guys are together, had me and the rest of my theater laughing out loud. So, it's an interesting blend, because it has this feel-good dark humor to it, but it's also incredibly emotional and heartfelt and poignant at the same time. Alright, so that's my rankography of the 2024 Oscar nominees for live-action short film. Have you had a chance to see these live-action shorts? If so, what does your ranking look like? I'd love to see some reasoning for your order, so be sure to post it in the comments below. Also, be sure to check out my rankographies of both the animated and documentary shorts, as well as my continuing daily ranking series for all 23 Oscar categories. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information on this rankography, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more rankographies like this, as well as movie reviews. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainely Movies, the way life should be.